Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Air with Danielle Gray. This is another deep dive conversation, and I'd like to introduce to you Amanda. We're going to be talking, so I'm going to let her introduce you.
Hi, my name is Amanda Quick, and I am just in the process of releasing my first book. It's a memoir called The Sex Trafficker's Wife, and it details all of the events of my ex-husband's arrest for attempted human trafficking in 2016, all the way through to 2020 when I received full custody of my kids.
Oh wow, that's amazing, and also very scary thing to happen to you. I mean, just sex trafficking in general has become very broad in the media and television and podcasts because of people, I guess, try to warn us, especially women and children,
Yes.
try to keep us safe. So, what has your experience even been like? That just seems like a lot to take on and a lot to experience.
Well, to be honest, when he was first arrested, I didn't even know what it meant.
Yeah,
There's so much information in the news, and I actually thought it meant like shipping containers.
yeah,
I thought it was that kind of trafficking when I first, which made zero sense to me. But this particular offense was he met an 11 and 14-year-old, or attempted to meet an 11 and 14-year-old for sex. And because they were minors, it's considered trafficking no matter what. You're selling people for your purposes. And so that is still considered trafficking. And so that was his specific offense, is he was actually involved in more of the prostitution circles. And when offered children, he agreed to meet them.
that wow, it's such a that's so surprising. I'm just kind of shocked and don't know really what to say. That's kind of speechless. Just
That's basically what happened to me when I, at 5 o'clock in the morning, was speaking to the officer, going, why did my husband come home? Like, what?
yeah, and knowing that you have small kids too at the
Yeah.
time must have been just really
Yeah.
upsetting.
My kids were 1, 4, and 5 at the time. So I was a full-time stay-at-home mom, and I hadn't worked in 5, 6 years, and everything. We were financially reliant on him. We were everything. We were the picture perfect American household, 3 kids and a dog and a house and all the things.
Yeah, you don't really expect this to happen at all.
No, it was like literally the furthest thing from my mind about what could possibly happen in my life.
Yeah, it's like your whole life changed in one single night. That must have been so devastating because just of the life that you built.
Yeah. Yeah. It went up in flames. And, the hardest part to talk about of the whole thing is people assume after his arrest that I left. And the truth is, I didn't. I didn't leave because I didn't know how. I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to be on my own with 3 kids. I had so much conditioning around what family looked like and my responsibility to support my husband.
Yeah.
And I believed his version of events, which wasn't that he intended to have sex with minors. And like, he had a whole different story that he'd shared that I very, very tried to hold on tightly to. And I stayed and actually supported him through the criminal trial because I thought I had to. I thought it was my responsibility to make sure my kids had a dad in their lives, because I didn't.
That's understandable. That's understandable when you come from without a father, and also just the fact that any person in your situation with kids, I would imagine they will stay together as a family, and you want to believe your husband.
Right.
It's easy to want to say, I want to believe him because that's your spouse, that's your partner. You have 3 kids together. You want to believe that person is not what they say that everybody's saying they are.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable.
Exactly. And we were together, we were married 6 years and had been together, 8-ish. And, you think you know people, that doesn't make sense. That's not them. There's something else going on. He admitted to solicitation with adults. He swore up and down that there was nothing ever with children. And so on one hand, it was like his offense didn't match his crime, according to him. And I felt like I had no choice but to stay and support him, at least through that, so that my kids had access to their dad. And later, of course, I learned more and then had a very, very difficult family court battle after that.
Of course. Just the fact that he seems, I guess, narcissistic in a way, because he believes his own lies and really wanted you to believe him too.
Yes, exactly. I mean, he eventually was diagnosed with multiple personality disorders and major depression and anxiety. Never really, not full on narcissistic personality disorder, but dependent personality disorder, which operates similarly.
Yeah.
Because you become dependent on others to meet your emotional needs, essentially.
Yeah.
And passive aggressive personality disorder. That was another fun one.
Oh yeah, that's another good one. Passive aggressive is not good.
Yeah, like I didn't even know there was personality disorder for that, but it fit. So the reality was once I started to awaken and see the truth of all of the things, that's really when the blinders started to come off, and I started to see really what was going on behind the scenes. And I started to see the manipulations, I started to see the alienations, I started to see really the deviances for what they were. And then I saw my own kids in danger. And that's really what shifted it for me, is I saw my own kids being groomed by their father. And it was damned if I was going to let that happen.
Of course, your whole mama bear came out.
Yeah.
You're not going to let somebody, especially the father, kids are safety kids.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. I'm so surprised to hear about his disorders, but the fact that his ego, sounds like his ego really let to do a lot of these things. And also the fact that he was grooming your kids, that's so scary.
Yeah, it was very scary. And, it's one of the things, like you still didn't want to, I still didn't want to believe it. I still wanted to think there was another explanation, but it just became more and more obvious what was going on. And so I had to fight. I had to fight in a way that I had never fought before. And it really was me stepping back into my power to do that.
Yeah, sure. How did you find a way out? Did you get a job, or did you
in 2017, after he only received probation, he never went to jail. So that's a rant perhaps for another day. In 2017, I went back to work. I realized I needed to go back to work because I didn't know if he ever was going to. He lost his job after he was arrested because he was in IT security. Like he could not work in that with a felony offense anymore. And so I went back to work, and I wasn't making the same amount of money, but I was making some money. And that's what helped me see that I needed to leave him, because I was no longer in this bubble of reality of me and him and the kids. And that was the whole world. I started to really step outside of that. And I started to see how not okay the bubble was in a different way. And so as I left the marriage and I started to separate, that's when things really started to get really, really difficult between me and my ex, and between me and the kids. He was using alienation techniques to turn the kids against me, because I was the one who caused this. And I was the one who wouldn't forgive daddy. And that's why we were, all of that. And so that just escalated. And so I got parental rights evaluators, and I got the court system involved in a different way. But the reality is, the state of Colorado, where we were, it's such a 50-50 state that despite his offense, despite all of that, it was still very likely I was going to end up sharing custody. And it was terrifying to me. But when I really started to see the truth of it all, that's when I actually was guided, and interestingly enough, to go see a psychic who helped me realize that so much of the fear I was holding in my system wasn't this present moment fear, and it was fear from these patterns that we had been in before, and helped me release it, and basically said, you have a choice to make. You have a choice to make. Are you going to completely collapse this for good, or are you going to keep doing this? Yeah. And I said, I'm done. I'm so done. And in one moment I really truly changed everything, because from that moment I met that psychic, 6 weeks later, I had full custody.
Oh, wow.
And it took me basically being willing to be seen in what was going on. I had to be willing to ask for help. I basically went to every single person I could think of and said, this is what's going on and how can you help me? And who do you know? Because everybody knew somebody. And I was able to I actually got a hold of Homeland Security, who got me in touch with the arresting officer, who also helped me. The DA helped unseal the case file for me. I got multiple different child protective services people on board. I got it just started to catapult in all of these things where it felt like miracles were unfolding. I had evidence that was a 3-inch binder thick of all of this stuff. And so once I really went full throttle, for me, it was, I'm going to leave no stone unturned. There's nothing I am going to say I should have done that. I need to know that I did everything and then some, because I'm not going to stop until my kids and I are out safe. And it was at that hearing in March, or actually it was February of 2020, not long before the pandemic hit, that I received full custody.
Wow. It truly was miracles.
It really was.
Yeah, it's like everything aligned for you and everything fell into place and you just were able to just walk away. And you're so brave to walk away because some people don't.
Yeah, I know. And it's really hard. It's hard to see that. It's hard to watch that and know that. But to me, if I can be an example of what can be possible when people step into their power and people don't allow the system to tell them, because I had so many lawyers and evaluators helping before, and it still wasn't enough because the system is not set up to protect anybody. The system is only set up to be punitive if they can prove it. That's it. And I had to be the one to say, no, this is not okay. And I'm going to not let this turn into more. And, it meant recording my children. It meant, reading protective books to them and trying to empower them. It meant doing everything I could think of.
That's amazing to do, though, because you're giving your kids power too. As you stepped into your own power and your own healing process, you gave your kids the same healing and power that you have.
Yeah, well, exactly. And, it's hard. It's like the best worst case scenario, because the truth is they lost a parent.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy thing to go through for them. And they didn't know how bad it was, right? They were little and they lost a parent. They had to go through that. But now, 2.5 years later, they don't even really remember. My young one, who's 7 now, doesn't even know his name, doesn't really remember. He remembers they played video games together, but that's really it.
Good though, because just to have that kind of parent like that, you don't want your children to.
Exactly.
They're better off without him.
As hard as that is, it's the truth. And that's the thing that's really this fine line to walk, is at what point is it better that they're not around?
Yeah.
And I like to think, for my own sake, that this was the kind of final gift he gave us, because in the end, he chose to walk away.
Yeah. Just the fact that you're raising these amazing kids and coming out with a book to just help other people. I really hope that it does help people, because just sex trafficking in general is such a bad thing, but I find that it's just growing more and more, and people are finding more and more about it. And especially for us being women and children, they're the most targeted. They
are. Absolutely. And this, the interesting thing is, when we were doing research for the book, nobody has ever shared the wife's story. You can't find it. Yeah. There's the offender story, there's the victim story, but nobody shared it from the family perspective. And what happens to those who are connected to these people, and the stories that get held, and the impact that it has beyond just, it's a very big impact to the people involved, but there's so many other people involved. And it felt very, very important for me to share it from that perspective, because there can be a lot of judgment. There's been judgment that I stayed in the first place, and how could I have done that? And I'm not the only one.
Yeah, exactly. You do need to share the side of family members, because it's not only lives that he's ruined outside of the family, he's ruined lives inside of family members. And it's why? And children,
Exactly.
people suffer, even parents. And it's like, people don't share that side. And I love seeing that side of other people's point of view of the person that has done the horrible thing, but the family suffers. And it
Right.
isn't right. And I'm glad that you're sharing your story, because there's not enough people like that sharing their stories. And you do deserve to share your story, because you're a victim in this
Exactly.
situation too, just as much as the other victim. You are just
Well,
as much a
and
victim.
in some ways, I've looked at it in the sense that I'm the biggest victim because I mean, no, I wasn't, bought and sold in a sense, but
Yeah.
I was the one who had to deal with every single repercussion afterwards.
Yeah, you were duped into just
Yeah.
not knowing. And
Yeah.
that is just, that's ridiculous. And just the fact that you're being blamed for it too. It's not like you are your partner.
Right.
We don't always know everything about a partner. Not like it's
No,
your
no, we
fault.
definitely don't.
Yeah, it's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. It should be all on him. And the fact that you're being pointed your finger at is
Yeah.
just ridiculous to me, because it's like, can we just look at it from like your side of point of view and go, hey, maybe she was duped into this just like everybody else.
Right.
She deserves to have some credit.
Right. Well, and my point. My goal in sharing the story is to really walk people through where I was at in every step of the way and really what it took for me to get it. Because as hard as it is, it took a lot for me to really get it, for me to really change my opinion and understanding of the person I was married to. Even after I wanted to separate and didn't want to be married to him anymore, I still didn't think he was dangerous, not in that way. And it really took me seeing my own kids and their behavior changing and the things that they were sharing with me for me to go, holy. And then, of course, be reminded what he was arrested for. Like, it was flashing in front of my face, but I couldn't see it until I could see it.
Well, in a sense, he was kind of not only manipulating even the kids, he was emotionally and mentally abusing you.
Yes. Yes, very much.
Yeah.
There was a mass amount of gaslighting going on
Yeah.
and a ton of emotional and mental manipulation. And I was also diagnosed with PTSD throughout the whole ordeal because I was having panic attacks even when he would be messaging me because of how much fight was going on and how much he demanded his rights and his things. And it was all about him. It was never about what's best for the kids. It was never about how to work amicably together. It really was about controlling me.
Yeah. And controlling the kids. And it wasn't really
Yes.
like about anything else but what
Yes.
he wanted out of the situation. And if it wasn't going
Correct.
his way, then he would be completely belligerent and cruel to you. No wonder you had anxiety and PTSD. It's
Yes.
understandable.
Yeah. I mean, we had literal stand downs in parking lots about him trying to change parenting time around and things like that, where he would not let the kids out of the car for 45 minutes texting me. And it was like he was holding them hostage.
Yeah,
It was,
really
it
was.
was, and, through all of that, I was, had to work through my own triggers and my own things because I still had to be the grounding person for my kids.
Yeah.
And it was not easy.
No.
But we did make it through. We did make it through to the other end. And at the end, when they gave me full decision making and he had one last chance to do a whole lot of things to have any type of time with him, he didn't do a single one of them. And he basically chose to walk away at that point. Once he no longer could control me through the kids, in a sense, he walked away.
He just really just wanted to control you guys. It wasn't about having a relationship with us. It was just about controlling.
Well, and that's the hardest part, really. It's he made these choices with his mental health issues and with his inability or unwillingness, I don't know which one, to actually address it. And, the truth is he has a lot of demons in himself. And looking at it now from other perspective, like, he's got a whole lot of work to do if he's ever going to be a fully functioning human in this society. But only he can make that choice.
Yeah, exactly. Only you can make that choice. Thank God for you, though. You went from literal victim to survivor to just healing and then thriving.
Yeah.
You're thriving now because like you got out of that.
Yeah. Well, and I got out of it, and it really sent me on a journey to try to understand more and sent me on healing journeys, and it sent me down spiritual paths, and it sent me to really understand more of why we have these kind of experiences and what's the point of it all, and how do we actually, the realization I had after I succeeded and in it really seemingly impossible situation, it was really likely I was going to share custody with him for a very long period of time. All of the recommendations, because of the laws and because of the statutes, said that I was going to likely share custody. And when that changed, I realized that I could really truly manifest anything. If I could manifest true safety and security for me and my kids in a seemingly impossible situation by stepping into my power, by asking for help, by doing everything and then some, by basically being not willing to have any other outcome be possible, then I could do anything. And I really just had that realization and went, okay, what do I want next?
Yeah.
And my life has changed a lot, even in the last 2.5 years. And, my goals for this book release are to help people feel seen and where they are, because even if you weren't married to somebody who was arrested for human trafficking, there's a lot of people out there who are in narcissistic type relationships or abusive situations, or see themselves in these gaslighting situations, and they don't know how to get out either, and they don't know how to see through the other side. And there is a way through. There is a way through, and there is a way the other side. And there's a reason that we create these situations so that we can be those bridges so that others can also come out. And, my goals are big and lofty with all of this, because I also really don't like how hard it was, the custody fight, despite his arrest, because despite all of the evidence there, it was a $75,000 divorce that took 18 plus months. That was really more damaging than it was supportive for both me and the kids. And yeah, I want it to change. And so I've actually just filed to start a nonprofit to help people who are fighting for custody from their abusers and their children's abusers, because there are so many people out there who don't have the funding to have the fight, and they don't know how to find safety in themselves, and they don't know how to create that in their reality. And so if I can do anything to help change it, I will.
Just me from being in an abusive relationship, help others to be in a situation and to feel like there's no way out. But thank goodness for you and your situation, for being able to give people that power to step into their own power and be able to say, hey, if I can do it, anybody else can. That's why I basically started this podcast too, was from life experience and healing through our traumas, and just being able to show other people that they can thrive too, and they can feel, and they can still heal and thrive at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so, I have, like I said, lofty dreams here, but I'm going for it because I have the story. I have the evidence to basically show that it's possible to change these things. And I know so much now about what that looks like, and how important it is to find safety in our bodies, and how important it is to work with our mental and emotional state, and how important it is to ground into self so that we can create a different reality on the outside.
Spirituality is such, yes, it's going to save a lot of people, and just grounding yourself and telling yourself that you're safe in your body and trying to work your nervous system. All those things are so great to keep you manifesting the life that you want, and to step out of the fear.
Exactly.
But I'm so glad that you're changing laws, because so many laws need to change. It's just doesn't fit today's society, and it doesn't fit people's lives nowadays. Kids and the safety of women and children, and it just all needs to change. There's not enough support for kids and children.
No, there really isn't.
Yeah,
there really isn't.
I find that the predators are the ones that usually walk away and are fine, and it's just not enough time has passed for still change. There still needs to be so much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if I can even bringing awareness to it, I don't have all the answers of what it should look like, but bringing awareness to it and helping those in those situations is something I can do. And so I will. And, I'm not going to stop. Just like I didn't stop
Yeah.
with my divorce, I'm not going to stop either, because it's too important.
Yeah. And you're getting people to fight for their rights. And the more people that we can bring together, especially with your story, we can get people fighting to change the laws. We can actually get people that are involved in the laws to actually look at these women telling, or even some men, like telling their stories and letting people know, hey, this is my situation. Can we change the laws? Can we do something about it? Maybe marches will happen. Maybe things that can still can be passed, but we haven't gotten that far yet. But maybe by just having this podcast and having this interview, we can inspire people to go that far.
Right. Well, exactly. And, we need more. To me, I also would love to inspire other people to share their stories, because I know I'm not the only one. In my very small town, there has been multiple sting operations that have caught probably a total of 10 to 15 men doing this. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who was married to one of them. And that was just in my little small Colorado town. These happen all over the place. And there's so much shame, and there's so much, just hiding from all of it, not wanting to be connected to what happened. And I get it. I was there, but we have to break that barrier, and we have to talk about it in order to actually make change.
Yeah, we need to stop shaming each other and start working towards different, because it is like all over the world. It's not just in America, Canada.
Exactly.
It's all over the world, and we need to really help kids and women and even some men just to get out of this situation and not be trafficked, because it's a major problem. It's one of the biggest problems, I think, now more than ever, because we're speaking so openly about it.
It really is. It's a huge issue. And I mean, the internet does not help a situation, right? It's a humongous issue, and it's not talked about enough, and it's not looked at from all angles. It's not looked at, and really the amount of impact that this entire problem has across the world.
Yeah. And there needs to be real facts coming out instead of false ones. And there needs to be true stories instead of made up ones. We need to really push for the facts and the truth instead of just whatever we think it is.
Right. I mean, I would love for my story to be even a movie one day and people watch, because it's not the Hollywood version of it. It's the real life version of it.
Yeah, exactly. It's the truth. And that's what we need. We need more of the truth telling of what's really going on in trafficking and what's really happening with the families and with the victims and with, like you said, all sides of it. All sides deserve to be told.
Yeah.
Because everybody who's involved in it has experienced something. And I'm sure it's very similar to the victims also, because you're being manipulated. They're all being manipulated. We're being manipulated. It's all an issue.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the fact that you're just telling your story in general is just amazing, because we don't have wives telling their stories. We just don't hear about that at all. They're not brave enough to speak. And it's eye-opening to hear your story, because I've always tried to look at it from everybody's point of view. That's just who I am. I'm just the person that observes everything. And I never really realized that the wives were telling their stories. And I didn't understand why they were so scared to tell their stories. But thank you for telling yours, because now you're giving people a reason to be brave and step up, because there's not enough.
No, there really isn't. And, to me, there's a lot of them are afraid to tell either whether they stayed or left at all.
Yeah.
There's just so much shame and judgment from self and others. I remember when the first article came out in the town newspaper, it felt like somebody had painted a giant red A on my door. Yeah. That's where I felt, even just having his name out there tied to me in some way. I was so scared that people were going to connect the dots. And when they met me, and even just connect my last name to something they'd read in the paper years ago, I was that level of terrified that I was going to somehow be connected to his offense.
Yeah, and the judgment that goes with that. Society needs to stop
Yeah,
judging its spouses because it's not on you, not on any of you. It's a human choice to do that by themselves. That's just a one person choice. That's not
exactly.
a family choice.
Right.
It's not like they go
Exactly.
out going, "Oh, what should we do as a family? Just sit around talking." No,
Yeah.
it's like
No.
you're not talking about this stuff. It's not that's not normal. Like you deserve to be held with respect and to be kind of told, "Hey, I'm sorry that you're going through this. You're really brave. Thank you for stepping up and telling your story." That's what people do. They don't need to shame you.
No, no. But I mean, that's not how the world works, at least yet.
Yeah,
So I'm going to hold space for the world to shift in that way the more I come
yeah,
out. But I have done so much healing and so much work and let go of so much of that judgment that, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of what happens. I'm not afraid of what people say because
yeah,
it's too important. It's much too important to worry about that. And
yeah,
I think the louder I am, the more impact I can make. And so that's what I'm going to do.
yeah. And the quieter the other people will get, like the
Exactly.
judgers and the haters, they will slowly start to quiet down because the louder you get, the it's easier for them to quiet down. It's just be like, okay, I'm just gonna back in my corner because I'm wrong, and I'm just gonna let this person speak.
Right. Exactly. I mean, like I said, I want this to go big and far and wide. And so
Yeah,
the more I share, the more people who will hear it and the more people who will like really start to look at things differently.
yeah. I think you deserve that so much. Can you let the listeners and watchers know what your book is called again, just so they
Yes,
know?
it's called The Sex Trafficker's Wife, and it's going
Okay.
to be coming out January 10th of 2023.
Okay.
January is Sex Trafficking Awareness Month in the US.
Okay.
And so my goal is to bring more awareness to all of it as I share my story. And so it will be available on the Amazon. I will have a website set up, thesextraffickerswife.com, that will have all of the links. If people want updates on the book and like a email to their inbox,
Yeah.
I do have a way that people can sign up to receive those updates on my coaching website. It's amandaquickhealing.com/book.
Okay.
That's what's currently set up right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna be leaving that in the show notes for people.
Perfect.
Yeah, they can get to you any when they can, and they can get the book because I think
Yep.
this book is important, and I'm sure I'm gonna get myself a copy at one point because I want to read this just because it's your point of view and your story and other lives' stories in a way
Yes, it
that are
is.
not telling their stories. It gives us
Exactly.
a full, broad view of just everything that goes on in a household with a trafficker and what that does to devastate a family and why they shouldn't judge the family for a one person system.
Exactly. Well, and I think people don't understand what happens to you from a mental and emotional standpoint
Yeah,
when big events happen. The amount of shock that enters your system and the amount of ability to even have a rational thought when you're operating on pure adrenaline for months at a time,
yeah.
it's not even realistic to think I would have known something else. I was operating on only instinct at that point, and my instinct was to protect myself and my family.
It's amazing that this didn't break you because it's something that's so terrifying that it could have went either way. It could have either
It could have.
broke you or made you braver. And thank God it made you braver because like this needs to be talked about.
It
It
does.
needs to be talked about.
Well, and I think that it does break some people in a sense. And
Yeah,
I'm not an easy person to break.
yeah.
But,
Thank God you're strong enough to like just keep going and to tell your story.
I think for a period of time, I thought that it may have, but
Yeah,
I came through that and I came through that much stronger. And my kids have come through it stronger and our relationship is stronger. And,
good.
what I know about myself and the world is so different. And
Yeah,
the amount of just how much more I understand myself and my being and the whole point of this experience is so different. I was was just a stay-at-home mom whose focus was her kids and everything in her life was her kids. And that was it for such a long period of time. And that I had to change that. I had to really look at what I needed and who I was in a different way in order so that I could find me, because me is who had to get me out of that.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to just provide better for your kids. And I'm glad that your relationship is so much better. And I'm glad that they're safe and you're safe and that you are all safe and away from him.
Yep. Yeah.
And
I
that,
mean, they're 7, 10, and 12 now. So they've grown up a bit. They're still wild and crazy and they
yeah,
still fight like brothers, but they're so much different in a lot of ways. And there is not the same I hate you, mom going on that there was.
well, you guys deserve all the happiness in the world, honestly, from this situation. I'm glad that you're all thriving instead of just being in that shock fight or flight mode, but that you're all thriving and healing still, and that you're just going on. And you just deserve all the happiness in the world, and you deserve to change the world with this book, and hopefully change a lot of other people's point of views too, and make women and even some men who go through these situations and any abuse, hopefully make them stronger.
Yeah, that's my goal. My goal is
Yeah.
to inspire and to advocate and to just spread as much awareness as I can.
And I really hope that all your goals honestly do come true, because what you're doing is really amazing. And I think that you just need to be told that, because not a lot of people are told that what they're doing is amazing. And it's amazing because you're fighting to change something that needs to be changed.
Yep. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's something that hit me really, really hard after I succeeded, that it cost me $75,000 to do that. And it was a hard, hard fight even then. And there are so many people without those resources, and, especially, and less privileged, and, women of color and those kind of situations, and don't have access to those kind of resources and don't get taken seriously in the same way. I was in a very privileged position to have that fight. I'm a educated white woman who had access to funding to do that. And so many people do not. And if I can help those people have access to resources that they wouldn't otherwise have, and help them get into a better emotional state so that they can have the fight that they didn't think they could have, I can really affect real change.
Yeah, and I hope that you make that change. And, I know that you've already changed my point of view from just this situation and this interview, and just from your story. Just, I wanted you on the show so badly just to hear it, because I think what you're doing is so incredibly brave, and sex trafficking is so incredibly scary, that I just think the two of the combined of like just your story and just the fact that it's coming from your point of view is just, I think it's much better.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm speechless over the story, because it's so mind-blowing that you were able to get through it. That's just, it's mind-blowing to me, because you don't hear about these success stories.
You don't. And I have met people who are living my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing, is I have met people who are sharing custody with somebody who's likely abusing their children, and protective services isn't doing anything. There's not enough proof. It's not bad enough yet.
Yeah.
And they are living my worst nightmare. And they're drawn to me because they see that I succeeded at a seemingly impossible thing. Yeah. And really my goal is to affect enough change in the systems that we don't have these situations anymore.
Yeah. And I hope that you get to your goal, because your story is just mind blowing. I'm speechless just because it's like, wow, she is brave, and what she went through, I don't know. For me personally, I don't know if that would have broke me. So I'm really impressed by you, and I'm really inspired by you, just to see how far you fought, and just see you still fighting and thriving. It's amazing to me. Like, I'm so speechless, because it's just like, wow, you went through this, and it's finally a person, like a spouse, a wife, is telling the side of that needs to be told.
Yep.
It's about time.
It is. It really is. It's past time. And it took me 2 years to write the book because it was a very heavy book to write. You have to basically relive it in order to get it on paper. And you have to read it over and over and over again as you add more and edit and change and move things around and all of that. And so it was not an easy process, but it was also a very healing process because I got to look at it with new perspective and new awareness. And honestly, if people have big stories, I would encourage you to write it, even if you never intend to publish it. Getting it out of your body, getting it out of your system, and looking at it in a new light and releasing it can really, really help.
It honestly is just putting it down on from your body, everything. Yes, the anxiety, the fears, the triggers, all of that really helps everything. Just writing it down, keeping a journal, even if they don't publish it. I just think that it's so important just to release all your worries and your stress.
Yeah, I mean, there were areas of the book where as I was writing, my entire body would tense up, and I was like, oh, okay, that's where we're storing that.
Yeah.
It's time to bring this out.
It's a cell memory too. It's just kind of like, okay, that situation happened. My cells and my body and remembering that it's happening.
Exactly. But I had the opportunity to then release it as I was doing that. And that's, what I went into and what I got into after 2020 was down the energy healing and spiritual path so that I could gain the tools to help others in a different way than I didn't have those tools at the time, but I was able to use those to help other people. And now I have a new set of awareness of what happens in these situations and how much we store in our body and how much we need to actually reprogram our systems when we create these kind of experiences.
Through that experience, you learned so much, you educated yourself on so much, and you're teaching other people. That's just that's an amazing thing to do, because sometimes it's hard for people to teach other people when they've gone through something like that, or they don't. So I think that it's amazing that you're helping other people through their how to release their stress and to release their worries and their mental stuff that they've been going through and their trauma and all that stuff, all that PTSD stuff. I think that it's a really amazing thing to do, because some people just. So I think that you are just an incredible person for telling your story, first of all, for being brave enough to write this book, and for letting me honestly interview you. Thank you so much. Little baby podcast just beginning. So thank you for letting me interview you, and thank you for telling your story. Thank you for letting me talk to you, because it's really been insightful, and I hope that other people take that book when it comes out and learn from it, and check out your website and learn how to heal, and just hopefully become braver like you and just step into their own power. And hopefully a lot more people step into their own power, and we can become better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, that's all I want. If you were to ask, people have asked me before, what's one gift I want to give to everybody in the world? And if I could sprinkle pixie dust all over the world and give everybody one thing, it would be that everybody trusted themselves first.
Yeah.
And everybody really understood how much power they have if they can operate from that place.
Well, it's amazing that you trusted your instincts and that you went from and there's nothing wrong with being a housewife and a mom at home. Like, you did an amazing job with that to begin with, but just to get out of your situation and turn your life around into something really positive is such a great way of showing people that your traumas and your bad life experiences don't define you.
Exactly. It's a step along the way, and it's information and it's inspiration for what, how bad it can get and how good it can then become. Yeah. But it doesn't define me in any shape or form.
No, it definitely shouldn't, because you deserve to be the best version of yourself, like all of us. All be the best version of ourselves, that we deserve to see our bad situations go from bad to good, and also look at it from a different perspective with compassion, kindness. Maybe go, okay, that was a mistake, but I learned from it, and I'm a good person and it's okay for me to make mistakes. Like, not be so hard on myself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So hopefully people will, I'm really hoping that this podcast helps get you to, like, people to the books, and my listeners and my viewers to read your book and to go to your website and just to learn more positive ways to get out of situations and the hard situations that make themselves better.
Yeah, absolutely. I will help in any way I can if people reach out to me. Absolutely. I do offer one-on-one coaching, and I do have programs right this moment. And then I'm getting my nonprofit off the ground as we speak.
I hope that everything works out for you, and thank you so much for being a part of my show, and thank you so much for telling your story and for educating me more so on everything. And I really do just wish you all the best in your life. And I hope that I can have you one day again in my podcast.
Absolutely.
Bring other projects one day in the future, maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. I would love that. And I so appreciate